guys? Welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an article titled, Why Do Average Looking Men Think They Have a Chance with Me? Am I less hot than I think? And a big shout out to Mike for sending me this article. And guys, this article, what we have here is a woman who's fed up because she doesn't get why all these average men in her opinion, are so interested in her, and how dare they think that they actually have a chance with me. Because in her view, she's such a catch, she's so beautiful and desirable that no average guy should dare think they should have a chance with her. And she's also upset that the guys that she wants, the high value guys if you will, aren't interested in her. Okay? Does this sound at all familiar? Now, where does this delusion come from? Where does this sense of entitlement come from? We all know. I don't have to say it, but we all know. One word, effiness. The effiness movement. Conditioning women for decades. You're entitled to everything. The world's your oyster, so on and so on and so forth. And not to mention, whenever social media really began and dating apps with endless supply of guys, giving women, just average women, let alone above average, a never-ending supply, 24/7, 365 of attention and validation. It builds up the egos. That's why you have so many women that aren't bad-looking, cute, oh, not bad. But in their view, they deserve guys that are 10s. They think they're 10s when they're not, because of all the attention and validation on social media and dating apps, which I tell you guys, don't do that. Control yourself. Stop with all the likes. Stop with all the comments. Stop flooding them and bombarding them with emails and texts on those dating apps. It just builds up the egos. And the even worse guys that sign up for the sites like OnlyFans and pay to look at these pictures or to converse with these women that they would never ever talk to. You can see where this attitude develops, amongst many other things encouraging this. But so what happens here in this article is she writes into this advice column called How to Do It, making these complaints. And she's looking for some answers, some sympathy, some pity to help her in her situation, because obviously she's in a bad situation in her view. And also, guys, as I go into this, wait till you see how old she is here. You would think with this attitude that she's in her prime, 25 or something, 28 even. Nope, that's not the case. So you'll see as I go along. So it starts off, Dear How to Do It. I'm an attractive and intelligent woman in my mid-30s. Mid-30s. Not mid-20s, not early 20s, not late 20s, the prime, mid-20s. Mid-30s. Now let me make this clear. There can be plenty of damn good-looking women in their 30s. Plenty of them. As well as in their 40s, and in some rare cases 50s if they really take care of themselves. But they're not going to compare to a woman in her prime, in her late teens, college age, and in her 20s. Not even close. So already here, mid-30s, she still has the mindset that she's as desirable and attractive as she was 10, 12, 14, 15 years earlier. It's not the case. She says, to a certain extent, I know these things to be true. A certain extent. I worked for 15 years as a successful commercial model. That shows you where some of this attitude is coming from. And I have a master's degree and above average IQ. Back to the certain extent. Master's degree and above average IQ. She's definitely full of herself. She says, I'm in incredible shape. Also important to add, I definitely don't come across as modest. Lady, you've made it abundantly clear in the first few sentences that you are anything but modest. What you're showing is you have a giant ego and a chip on your shoulder. She says, I don't come across as modest or sexually conservative. I post lingerie and bikini selfies. Where does she post the lingerie and bikini selfies? I'll tell you where. Social media. And obviously she is a former model. And even if she's 35 and she says that she's obviously above average and incredible shape, guarantee you she gets bombarded with likes and attention from likes, comments. I'm thinking Instagram here. You can see what keeps this ego going on. So I tell you guys not to do that, but this is today's world. This is what happens when all this attention goes to somebody's head. She says, I get a lot of emotional and intellectual fulfillment from my relationships with family and friends. When I date, my primary interest is in finding partners who excite me physically and fulfill me sexually. For reasons I don't understand, I rarely attract these men anymore. Well, we understand because you're in your mid-30s. You're not anywhere compared to what you were in your 20s. When you were a model, that was your prime. Notice that she is a former model. She doesn't do that anymore. There's a reason she's not doing it anymore. Some people may say, oh, maybe she chose to retire from that. Maybe. There's always modeling work for people different ages, but the point is she's not doing it anymore. But that attitude that I'm just as desirable and as high value, I know my worth, as she was back in the day, that's what's going on here. But that's simply not the case, because when it comes to men are visual creatures. And that's the number one thing we look at. For women, it can be more confidence, guy makes me laugh, of course resources, ambition, drive. But for guys, it's looks, hands down. And like I said before, 20s, late teens, prime, peak. At 30s, not as much. Again, you can have plenty of good-looking women, but not the same. So she doesn't understand. Why am I not getting the attention from the guys I want? Because those guys, guarantee you weren't given the time of day when you were in your 20s, because you were probably with older guys. And those guys that actually you want now that are probably your age, they have made something of themselves, and now they're dating women in their 20s. That's how this works. It says, the men who flock to me, asking me out to the tune of several times a week, ! Are average or below average looking smart guys. Oh, poor you. These men have everything I'm looking for in a friend, but they aren't what I'm looking for in a dating partner. My take is that they think my academic interest and penchant for elevated conversation will make me fall for them despite an obvious attractiveness gap. An attractiveness gap, huh? Now listen to this. She says, if I was looking for a marriage partner or someone to start a family with, that might be true. So she's admitting right here that if I indeed, at this age of mid-30s, let's say she's 35, just to make it simple, if I was looking for someone to get married to or something like that, then maybe these guys might actually be okay. Translation, she's admitting flat out what we all know, what so many women do, is that when they're ready to find their man to start a family with and do the whole house in the suburbs, white picket fence, 2.5 kids, a dog and a cat and all that, they can go find their marriage material guy, which is usually these guys that she describes here as average or below average. But right now, she's riding the carousel because she's outright admitting that's what she wants to do. And she's looking for the top high-value guys. Those guys obviously aren't interested in her like those guys were when she was 10 years younger. But she still thinks she's as desirable and has this giant attitude and giant ego. And talking down to probably plenty of guys that are probably good-looking guys, just they're not models like she feels entitled to have. She says, but I'm not. I want a hot you-know-what with semi-committed, medium-term partners. What exactly does that mean? Semi-committed and medium-term partners. Because Chad and Tyrone, they're not at all committed, and they're not medium-term. They're as short-term as it gets. So she doesn't want a relationship, but she also doesn't want Chad and Tyrone. So I'd like to know what the definition is of semi-committed and medium-term. She says, it sounds odd, but recently this nonstop attention from average-looking guys has started to eat away at my self-esteem. In other words, why are all these peasants interested in me when before I used to have lords after me? So it's making me feel to question my beauty, to question my worth. I'm sure, physically, I'm going to guess probably if I saw her or some of you guys saw her, because I don't know what she looks like, by the way. There's no picture of her on the article or link. I wish there was, so I know what I'm talking about here. Probably I would find her above average in terms of looks. But probably the second you start talking to her, you'd see the chip on her shoulder, and it would turn me off. Probably a lot of you guys too. But here's another thing, guys, a little quick tip. All women, I don't care how hot they are, have esteem issues. All of them are insecure about something. And usually even the best looking women, the most physically attractive ones, they're more insecure about more things than even the not so attractive ones. No joke. She says, instead of feeling flattered that they connect with me intellectually, I question whether interest from them is only. I question whether interest from only this type of man means I'm not actually attractive. So what I tell you about these really good-looking women that are very, very insecure, right there. The average guy, only the average guys want me, so maybe I'm not that attractive anymore. Well, I'm sure she probably is attractive, but she's not like she was when she was younger. And so the guys she wants, they're dating women in their 20s. Or maybe late teens for all I know. And she's really wondering this. Well, guess what? Also, I'm sure your attitude and the giant-ass chip on your shoulder isn't helping things either. She says, again, they're great people, exclamation point. I just don't want to have you-know-what with them. Girls always got to throw in the nice things so she doesn't come off too much of as a bitch. She says, what can I do to attract the type of man I actually want to date? How many times has that question been asked? Right? What can I do to attract the type of guy? Well, the first thing you can do is start to take a realistic look at your worth. Because you listed here, I got a master's degree and above a high IQ and all that stuff. That may be fine after all the other things in terms of looks, body type, age, all that. But even if she was younger with her attitude, I guarantee it would turn off a lot of good guys, high-value guys. What can she do to attract the type of guy she wants? Have a realistic look at what you're actually worth. That you're not in your 20s anymore. The type of guys you do want, they're either not going to settle down. Well, she says right here she wants to basically ride the carousel, but those guys are busy riding the carousel with girls in their 20s. So they're not going to want you as much. Or maybe that it would be, a one-nighter, but not these medium-term relationships that she mentioned earlier. You got to have a realistic approach and lose the attitude. And how can I stop myself from feeling so insecure about the type of attention I'm getting in the meantime? And she ends it with her calling herself too sexy. Well, again, lose the attitude. Lose the chip on your shoulder. You're not the model you once were. You're not what you were in your 20s. Sure, I'm sure you look very good. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt here, but come on here. But how many have this type of attitude? How many guys who are watching me right now that do dating relationships have encountered this? I'm sure many of you encounter this on a daily basis. Not just if you're actually on a date, but just in women you talk to in general. Female coworkers, female acquaintances, friends, women in your family. It's like, what the hell are they thinking here? And how can she stop herself by feeling so insecure? Well, that's on her. Okay, I'm not a woman, so I can't figure out what's going on in her head. And to be perfectly honest, I don't want to figure out what's going on in her head. But all I can say is basically lose the attitude, start having a realistic look, really what you are, and go from there. But point is this: I'm not doing this article to help her. I'm just doing this article to show you guys a perfect example of the attitude that's out there. But that's today's world. But anyhow, guys. So I'm doing this for many of you guys to dating, relationships pick up, because to show you perfect example. Not that many of you don't already know this. This is what's out there. This is the attitude. This is thanks to the Attractiveness movement and the impact it's done, building up the egos. You're worth everything. You're worth it. And also the media, TV, movies promoting this idea. Come on here. You got to be out of your damn mind. And yet these women wonder why they're alone. Well, they can't get a guy. And this same gal, guaranteed, is going to be on YouTube, starting a channel or writing articles, crying that she's alone in her 40s and that where are all the good men? I can't find a good man out there because no guy wants to commit to me and all that. Meanwhile, she had a never-ending supply of guys that were interested in her. I mean, right here, she mentioned never-ending supply, but she doesn't want them. They're not good enough for her. When I'm willing to bet you, most of them are probably really good guys. So, as an example of today's world, so for you guys that pretty much had it and don't date, don't do relationships, this is just reinforcing what you already know and why you don't do it. And for those guys that do date and do relationships, this is what you're going to encounter. So just keep that in mind when you're out there. So anyhow, guys, that'd be an entertaining entertaining article to go over. Thanks to Mike to sending me this over. This is today's world. So, all right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.